Imagine that you have died and all of a sudden you wake up and you've come back to life, and there are these two young women who are trying to tell you that you have come back to life, and from now on you will stay the same age you are, but you'll stay alive. Sounds kind of weird, right? But this is true for Ren. Ren has died from a bus accident and has come back to life and is starting to rebuild her life in a new way. She regains all of her senses and finds out that she is not the only one who has gone through this experience. In Andy Lockwood's House of 13, we follow Ren as she is adopted by these two women and is now a part of the Delaney house. But the Delaney house seems to have some kind of mysterious vibes with it. There's a lot of secrets that she doesn't know and is trying to dig through, and some very dark secrets arise as she delves into the history of the Delaney house and a former owner, William Delaney. I cannot express to you guys enough how happy this book made me. I know the last two books before I said were some of my most favorite books so far, but this one has topped it by far because this novel had so many different elements to it that contributed into a most harmonious sound and quality that I don't think I've seen in very many supernatural-based novels. And let me just explain. So first, the overall storyline was absolutely incredible. There were very little plot holes, if any, and the only thing that I really think that should have been worked on a little bit more may have been the overall idea of how exactly Ren and the other girls in the house were exactly brought to life. It wasn't necessarily explained, it was just stated that there was some kind of weird supernatural force that had been able to bring these girls back to life after they had died, but that wasn't really explained too much more in the story. However, I am curious to see if Andy is watching this, if he would be willing to explain whether or not it will be discussed later on in future novels of the series, or if he would be willing to explain it if it doesn't come up again in the rest of the series. But I'm willing to bet that with more books in the series, that it will later be explained. It's just not the appropriate time to divulge into that. Secondly, the characters were absolutely hysterical. Ren herself is a very sarcastic, very kind of edgy character, and it is shown throughout the entire novel. All of the little quips and little sarcastic comments that she makes throughout the novel is prominent, and there was so much life to every character that was brought into the series. And it was just incredible to see the dynamic of each girl throughout the course of the novel change as things became much more drastic and much more dark, especially when it came to characters like Jo, who you realize has a lot more of a darker past and a lot more to her than meets the eye. And along with Mariel is one of those characters where she's a lot older than everyone and it shows, but there's a lot of vulnerability to her when it comes to certain things that arise over the course of the novel. And Ren herself, the main character of the story, she goes through a lot of changes. You know, she all of a sudden is brought back to life and has no idea what to do about it, and then is thrown into a scenario where she has to think on her feet and has to find out what exactly to do when she has no idea of what is exactly going on. So the whole dynamic of these characters is so captivating, and honestly, this novel, I literally sat one day, I have missed so much reading time, and so in one night, I sat and read 300 pages. I kid you not. And it was so easy to just be enraptured in the story and continue to read. It did not feel like I read 300 pages, to be completely honest. It did not feel that way at all. And if a book does that to me, and I feel like any other avid reader will appreciate and understand this, if a book can make you read 300 pages and not notice it at all, that is a sign of a very good story and a very captivating character. The fact that you want to sit and read and figure out what's going to happen to them is incredible. So kudos to you, Andy, for doing that. You really captured my attention with your characters and with the story. As far as the language goes, there is some language and some sexual humor that is involved in the story, so this is more considered, I would say, a young adult novel. However, it was very, very modern. It was very easy to understand. There wasn't really anything that I found confusing at all. Even when they came across a character who seemed to be kind of out of the norm, they were still easy to understand, and it was easy for the reader, myself, to be able to understand what was going on and what exactly things were happening. And even as they were delving into more historical events in the story, it was still easy to understand. Andy was able to cohesively combine these elements together in a way that made sense and in a way that made it interesting. So for my critiques of the novel, the only really two things that I had a problem with was, again, the concept of being able to be brought back to life. And then the only other thing I had was the overall length of the chapters. So before I actually had read the novel, I took a look at the length of the chapters because sometimes lengthy chapters can be very intimidating for people. These chapters had, on average, I would say between 20 to 35 pages a chapter. Now, looking at that objectively before reading the novel, that is very, very intimidating for a lot of readers, even one as experienced as myself. That's very intimidating. However, when I went into the novel and I continued to read and actually sat and read 300 pages in one night, it didn't feel like that. It didn't feel intimidating because the story was so quick-paced and there were a lot of lull points and very high-intense parts that made it a lot more interesting. It's kind of like how in a video game where you're supposed to have a lot of peaks and a lot of valleys in order for the player to become more interested. This novel had a lot of that. However, I do feel as though that there were a lot of points in the chapters where it could have been cut off for another chapter. That's just a personal opinion of mine. Somebody else may see that as it was totally fine and the lengths were perfectly fine. But for me, the chapter lengths were a little too much for somebody who may not be 100% involved with the story. So if you weren't really involved with the story at all, then chapters could be so intimidating to you, and I don't know, I'm just kind of on the fence with it. Like, I was okay with it, but I can see how a lot of people who would read this novel would be very intimidated by it and would be really hard for them to be able to get through the rest of the novel. Anybody else who reads this, let me know if you have read it and what you thought of it, or what your stance on with long chapters is. Do you like them? Do you think that they could be kind of overdone? Do you feel like that they should not be in a thing at all and you should stick with short chapters? What do you guys think? The fact that I got to read something that, you know, is a friend of a cousin of mine is incredibly amazing. I'm very grateful that she was able to lend me her copy of this novel so that I could, or she was able to give me a copy at least of this novel so that I could have it for my collection. And I'm very proud to have it in my collection, Andy. Let me tell you, if you are watching this at least, I'm very proud to have this in my collection because this is honestly an incredible debut for a series. There was so much more that you're able to play with now because of how the novel was set up and the way that it ended, and the characters were so enticing and so relatable and incredibly well developed. Even in the first book, there was so much growth between all of the characters. There's so much more growth though that can happen from them, and I'm very excited to see how you do that in the next novel. But overall, as you guys can tell, I'm thoroughly impressed with this novel. I am more impressed by this novel than I thought I would be. I honestly did not go into this novel thinking it was going to be fantastic or very impressive, but I was so wrong. I cannot even begin to describe how sorry I am for doubting this novel. I'm so impressed. And Andy actually publishes his novels through Amazon. He's a very small-time author at this point, but I really think that if more people were able to read his novels, he could be a very successful author, and this series could be so successful in the future. So I'm very grateful that I'm one of the very few people who have read this and are able to do something like this. And I wanted to do a book review on this novel because I felt like he deserved it. He deserved to hear the praise that I give this novel, because as an avid reader and an experienced reader, this is one of the best supernatural series, I guess you could say, I have read. So overall, fantastic novel, Andy. I'm so excited to see how the rest of the series plays out. So the next book that I will be reading is going to be Hush Hush by Becca Fitzpatrick. This is a novel that has been raved by several friends of mine. They all seem to really love it, and the concept of it is interesting. I don't know too much about it other than there's this girl who meets this guy who's very kind of interesting. She doesn't know really what to think about them, and it has something to do with fallen angels, which I've always been interested in the concept of fallen angels, you know, just something kind of very weird about that. So I'm very excited to read this book, but I'm not going to put my expectations too high in case all the hype that I've heard is not going to be met, which which just happened. There's been a lot of books recently that I have found that I thought was going to be really, really good, and some have not really met that expectation, or they met it but didn't exceed my expectations. So we'll see how this one goes. But thank you guys so much for joining me in this book review of House of 13 by Andy Lockwood. If you guys enjoyed it, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you guys are thinking of supporting him in any way by reading his book or checking out his page, I will leave all links down below. Please go support him, because I really think he deserves more credit for what he's done. He's a very, very good author, and I really feel like he could be taken to so many greater heights if people could just give his books a chance. And I'm not just saying that because he's a friend of my cousin. I truly, truly believe that. This is not some kind of sponsored video or anything. This is my honest review of this novel. I think it is fantastic, and I think so many more people could enjoy it. So I do believe that he deserves all the credit he can get for it. And Andy, if you're watching this, thank you for allowing me to look at this novel and be able to review it. And thank you for creating such an amazing novel that has captured my interest and has made me want to read more of the series, and I cannot wait to see where you go with this series now. But yeah, so if you guys did enjoy this video, please do give it a big thumbs up, and if you're not already and you'd like to be, hit that button down below to subscribe to become an owlet in our flock, and I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye guys! Please go check out his Amazon, and please go check out his... winding myself out here. I keep talking too fast. Jeez. Oh, jeez. I forgot to take the sticker off of this one. Very unobservant. There we go. Go away. Thank you.